I'd like to share with you two different conclusion paragraphs by two different students from this semester who they're working on the rough drafts, and I'm just referring to their conclusions anonymously. They submitted their work early, and I was just really interested in the different ways in which they have chosen to write their conclusions, and I want to share with you what's working and what could potentially be improved if you're trying to aim for a meaningful and effective ending to your essay. And so I think they're doing two very different things. And so, like, I just want to say first, most there's no right or wrong way to do a conclusion paragraph. I'm not looking for like one like specific style, but I think voice and unification are two things that I do care about in terms of what I think good writing is. Like, is your voice in there? And are you unifying the ideas meaningfully based on what you've already covered in previous paragraphs? So let's look at these. The first paragraph says, in my conclusion, social network would always be a nightmare to the world because we never thought that our social society would be so ignorant to have issues, even if we were so social addicted to not think our health is first and then focus on social life. However, I had some experience that sort of addiction to my cell phone or laptop, but also I never paid attention to the around me. I never went out or never leave without my cell phone in cases of family reunions or meetings with friends. Furthermore, my addiction was killing me to some extent, but then I realized social media is not going anywhere. So to just decrease usages and do my health activities. But we underestimate the technology to the maximum degree just because of the dangers in one's self. So I love that the student is thinking about just how social media um, has been kind of a problem in our world, and she's saying it's going to cause a lot of problems. Is basically what she's saying. It's going to continue to be problematic, and then and maybe she could even say it that way if she wants to. And then we never thought that our social society would be so ignorant to have issues. Like we really never realized how problematic it would be in our lives, is what she's kind of saying. Um, Definitely this area could be improved because of all the times I just read it out loud and realized, wow, she says the word social and society quite a lot here. And so maybe just look at the repetition of the word choice and thinking of different ways to get at this idea and just saying, meaningfully, I love what she's saying. We're not thinking about our health. We're just so addicted. We don't think about what the impacts are and where it's going to go long term. So that's fine. And then by the end, she's really strong in just sharing her own personal experiences. And she's, trying to get to the heart of the matter, and in a way that it's just for her. Like, nobody else is going to have the same conclusion. It's unique to her experience and how she feels about her own addiction to cell phone usage and such. Now, I don't know if, she could go a little further. We're talking about Instagram specifically and social media and the ways in which maybe she uses it to influence others, or how other people influence her and how it affects her mental health. So I think just making sure she's consistent with Gritter's article and the other types of articles she has found to include in her paper would be good, because it sounds like we're focusing like on cell phones, like, which is more about technology versus actually like social media itself, which is a little bit more specific. So just kind of making sure she could emphasize this a little bit more, and then maybe share some predictions for the future, dangers she sees forthcoming, what she would like in the world, that some advice she has for our readers. So I think those are some of the best ways to kind of extend it in a more general way. But she is making that attempt to say we. I love that she's saying we, and she's moved out of I, so that we've kind of gone more in a general approach now. So that's some, good things there are some good things happening here, and I think there's little tweaks we can make here to improve it. And then, of course, in the beginning, I think what we've missed out on a little bit is just kind of sharing, well, what did these sources do for you? And what did you learn from doing the research? Like, what is new information? What has the research process shed light on for you based on this topic? Is there anything new or interesting that you gained that you hadn't really considered before? How, in what ways was it complicated based on all the research you did, even maybe beyond the 2 or 3 or 4 sources you've included here? So just kind of meaningfully going into why that's important and coming back to that. For the second conclusion paragraph, this student wrote about the traditional gender roles and caregiving experience, and this person has a completely different style. And so it goes like this. Gender bias may not only plague the wives, but also the husbands who want to take care of the family. While emphasizing gender equality, people should also consider the pressures on male roles. Although male caregivers are increasing, they may have paid more than female caregivers. Both in the United States and Germany, men are working hard to share the pressure of their wives, but they need more support. Especially for American husbands, they are more difficult to find help. Therefore, people should consider providing all-round training for these helpless husbands and establishing mutual help groups. In addition, the aging of caregivers is also an increasingly serious problem. The government should establish a more comprehensive pension system to ensure that these old people are comfortable in their old age. So what I love about this is that the person is considering, the future, kind of wrapping up the ideas from there seems to be an implication that, gender bias is plaguing not just the wives, but also the husbands. It's kind of coming up in all the other sources, but maybe just more emphatically, the student could share that this is what's been learned from the other sources. This is what's been examined and complicated. This is the trend we're seeing. They may be paid more. Men are sharing this. And I love how the word should gives the student an assertive sounding voice. Like, people should consider this. This is the student's voice emerging. I love that. It's so different from the last paragraphs, the student right from that last paragraph, because in the other one, there was a lot of use of I in order to get the personal story across, and this person never uses I but still manages to get their voice across too. It's a very formalized way of doing it, which is fine, because you've got, the government should establish a more comprehensive pension system to ensure that old people are comfortable. I love how meaningful that sounds. It's very formal, mature, academic. The approach is really strong. There's a lot of really great vocabulary. And so that is, in a lot of ways, like, the language and delivery and the way the word should is asserting a voice without even using I, and the transitions. There's some things that are happening here that are slightly stronger, but this paragraph is stronger in that the heart of the matter is really drawn in. And so when I read a student's paper, I want to know, like, well, why did you choose this? Like, why would you choose this topic over the other topics you could have chosen? Why is this meaningful to you? It's your conclusion. It's, the rhetoric of a paper is like, you go ahead and cite other sources to see what they say and what they examine, but what made you feel strongly? I think a paper should do its best. Any good piece of writing should again use ethical, logical, and emotional appeal. And so I really want to be moved by the end of the paper too in different ways. And I think one is the sense of urgency. That's a type of emotional appeal. But if you want to go even further, share like why this matters to you. Are you in a relationship? Do you hope to be there for your partner? Do you see changes even in the relationships around you now? Do you contribute to those the equality of those relationships and how people are treated? Like, how is this kind of research going to benefit you as a person in society, like in the long run? While avoiding words probably that sound like broad gestures like society. But you get what I mean? It's like let me show you an example of why good writing does have to hit not only a sense of urgency, but why it really matters to you. Let me explain why, okay? This is an excerpt from the cover letter that I showed you guys from the rhetoric unit. And this is when I was first teaching you guys about my sister writing this bakery cover letter and how to break out appeals and how to study rhetoric. Remember when I said in that video lecture, like, by the time she lists all the things she's done, well, she didn't list, but she really did describe all of her attributes. By the time she gets to the end, she says, why this is a meaningful job, why she would thrive there. This is it. It's like the best part of the writing is finally I would be invested in working for you because baking is my passion and hobby from scratch. I've made macarons, brownies, cakes, pies, and breads. I love baking because I get to be creative and I get to bring pleasure to people when I surprise them with treats. Like, this is where we really see the person care about what they're writing about. They're not just writing to impress you. They're not writing to say like, here's why, like is this going to pass? Like, just trying to you don't want to write in a way that is like this must be what my reader wants to hear. You want to write in a way that you uncover your voice so that your conclusion is nobody else's but your own and it means something to you. It's okay to use I by the end. All the other writers do it, right? And so neither of the pieces of writing here are doing anything wrong. I'm just showing you different voices and styles, but to kind of maybe even marry the two styles a little bit, like have a sense of urgency, but talk about why out of all, the 64 papers I'm going to read, why does it matter to you? And why did you choose this article? And what are you going to do with this information moving forward? Like, what do you recommend? So, three things, right? Unify what the research has done in the paper. What does this extend on the, if you have a limited scope of what is on this topic, and how has the research kind of expanded those ideas? Number two, get to the heart of the matter meaningfully, personalize it even if you can, and then maybe share some of this what should people do? What should we do? This person uses the word the people should consider and the government should consider, which is a different kind of method. It's not bad or good. It's just different. It's really good to have different styles of writing. And just saying like, implying your own voice. Your voice matters so much in what good writing is. So don't try to make me happy in terms of like, what does the professor want to hear? It's not going to help you in any way. I'm interested in not just what you're interested in saying, but it's all about how you deliver it. And lastly, I want to share with you a PowerPoint slide where it's so important to consider this, right? Everyone thinks. It is in our nature to do so. Like, everyone has a mind, everyone thinks. But much of our thinking left to itself is biased, distorted, partial, uniformed, or downright prejudiced. Yet the quality of our life and that of what we produce, make, or build depends precisely on the quality of our thought. Shoddy thinking is costly, both in money and in quality of life. Excellence in thought, however, must be systematically cultivated. And so I'm in the business of reading your papers and thinking, wow, that is an excellent original thought. That is so insightful. I feel like I'm learning something new from the student's perspective, from their research. So make sure you're not writing this essay as, oh, this is just an assignment. This is you demonstrating that you have character and values and that you care about this topic to some extent in whatever way that is. And find a way to engage in it and share your excellence in your own insight. And don't worry whether you're right or wrong or what anyone else thinks. Worry about how you're going to execute what you think and I want to see how you think about it on the page, okay? So if you have any questions, let me know. And I hope this gives you some inspiration into how to better approach this paper and have less anxiety on meeting the prompt exactly verbatim, but gives you a little bit of freedom to think for yourself, because that's really what we want by the end of English 120, that you are finding your own voice and consciously making judgments that are both fair-minded as well as critical, okay? Thank you for your time today.